Hello.
Welcome back.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Megan.
And you are listening to the Synchronicity podcast. We are the co-founders of Synchronicity. Change your brain, change your life, or become aware of it and fix it somehow.
We are mentors and coaches that help you reframe your brain by changing your brain to change your life, like Nicole said. So we're giving you tools on just how to make those changes here on our podcast / YouTube channel. And we're just so happy to have you. Thank you for being here. On our last episode, we did one on male communication. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the female brain / how females communicate differently than men.
We're not as complex, but we're way more complex.
We're way more complex.
Way more complex. The cool thing about the female brain is we have a bigger corpus callosum. So in the last podcast, we didn't really talk about what a corpus callosum was. And corpus callosum is actually this little nugget that sits in between both hemispheres of the brain. And it's 45% larger in women than it is in men. And it allows for the right lobe and the left lobe to communicate. So when women, because it's bigger, it allows us to think and feel simultaneously because we have two neurological connections that run through it. Where men, it's 45% smaller and it only has one neurological connection. So it makes it a little different when it comes to men. So if you aren't familiar with the male podcast, go back and listen to that one. That'll clear that up for you. Now that I think about it, we never talked about that part. We talked about the size, but we didn't talk about the actual anatomy. But
it's okay.
Here we are. They have testosterone and vasopressin. We have estrogen. Chaos.
Yeah, so our brains are wired more for connection than a man's. Testosterone is more about go hunt, seek, find,
Fix.
Yeah, kill, whatever. Ours are, with oxytocin and estrogen, we're just more into bonding, right? Oxytocin is the bonding chemical. As soon as we have sex, we bond. That's not true of men. That's all oxytocin. The first joke was estrogen. God's second joke was oxytocin. And I don't even know if it's his second joke because they're pretty much on the same level of entertaining. So one creates periods, one creates abnormally strong feelings. So, here we are. Why we rule chaos, the feminine. We're a good time. The world will be very boring without us. So, of course, our brains are more complex because we are wired for connection. And with being wired for connection, we just are about community, about communication. That's why our brains are more complex. Men are not so wired to create community and create, without women, we would all just be wandering around the jungle by ourselves. It's women that are the glue to society. Our oxytocin bonding and raising children and doing all those things, we kind of give men purpose because our brains are wired for those things. But with that being said, we're just so entirely different, and we need to honor those differences. So women, having a life outside of your husband and children with having communities of women and things like that are really, really important to your relationship with a man because of how our brains are. You can't expect your man to be everything. And that being said, men also need that, but for women, you really need a community that is outside of your relationship. If not, you see women collapse into depression and things like that because we are so hardwired for connection and community and those things, and you cannot get all of that from one person. So that's a really big thing to understand about our brains, is that we are multifaceted and we need more connections. Men are more solitary creatures than women are.
Well, and we are living in a very much a very codependent society right now. You're seeing women that are, in the corporate world going against each other. They're, competing and fighting for power. And that's not how feminine is. And it's always really funny because Megan and I, obviously, we have a lot of placements in communication, like in our birth charts. Like we have a lot of Gemini, and that's the role of communication. But it's really funny when we go like hang out with girlfriends. It'll be like 2-3 hours at a coffee shop, and it'll just be like literally you just talk about everything. And that you don't see, like, men don't typically do that. Like they're talking, they go get a beer and they talk about sports. It's very different when you actually like look at how men and women communicate within their like own networks of communication. Now, obviously, like when women are at work, they're usually in their masculine, they can communicate more directly, things like that. But in the sense of what Megan's referring to, like women, children, like they are community based. Men protect the community. And when it comes to communication, it's a huge part of like, what does the community need? The masculine figures out how to provide that and create protection and cherish that within the community. But feminine first has to have a community and a safe space for the masculine to be able to then protect and cherish. And if women aren't seeking that outside of the relationship, they're putting that on their masculine or their man, and he, quite frankly, biologically cannot provide for that that same instinctually community part.
Yeah, so it also goes into like texting and things like that. Like women want to talk to a man all day, every day. And that's just not, it's like, oh my God, he hasn't texted me in 3 hours. I find it so funny when clients say that, or like, they're like, well, I haven't talked to him in like 2 days. And I'm like, okay.
And being rejected.
Men just work differently. They I always explain to women that like our brains are like a plate of spaghetti and we're in like everything at once.
Sauce, butter, cheese.
And men are more like they have drawers that they pull out. And if they're not in your drawer, then they're not in your drawer. They're so much more present in every moment and wherever they're at than we are, because we're just like, oh my gosh, I'm texting, I'm working, I'm blah, 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 blah. And that's just like very normal for us. Again, we think and feel simultaneously. They either think or feel if they're right-handed. And so, we expect, I think the biggest problem in relationships is that women expect men to be women and men expect women to be men. And like, that's just, it's our differences that actually make us strong if we're very, we're very well balanced and have created a very strong sense of self and like who we are and know what we're bringing to the table, but also realize like the things that make men and women different is actually the most beautiful part about it. And I know when I stopped wanting men to be a woman and like text me all the time and like act like my friends do, it changed my relationships in a positive way, because I realized if a man's at the gym and he's doing his thing, like he's doing his thing, and I can have a life separate from him, and it actually empowers women to really do that. Go do you. Go to the gym. Go out with your friends. And if you're important to a man, he will text and call and make sure that he has space in your life. And the more that you're living your life and you have a very full, fun life, the more he's going to want to be a part of that. When we're sitting at home waiting for a man to text us because I haven't heard from him, that really needy energy is not what makes the feminine as beautiful as we are. It's that connectiveness. It's that fun. It's our multi-dimensional being that we are. We're so much more multifaceted than men, and it's really embracing that. And men want to be a part of that. I always call women like walking orgasmatrons, because that's what we are. The more, like orgasmic our lives is with fun and like having experiences and like just having a very full life, the more that a man is attracted to us. It has nothing to do with how we look. And that's true of even like my friendships. When somebody has a really full, fun life, you're just like, wow, I want to be a part of this person's world. It's so like fun. But when we are really collapsed and don't really have a life, like those people are just not as attractive in general.
Well, yeah, and it becomes a very straining on the relationship because, you then are turning to your man for everything. Emotional support, like solve your problems, fix your things, like do all of the above, but like he also needs space too to decompress, and you should honor that. But a lot of times women will get really upset because they have no life outside of their relationship.
Right.
And so usually when women don't have lives outside of their relationship, they usually don't know how to communicate, what their needs are and what is going on. And usually it's more of a like male to male relationship, instead of like she's more mothering him and telling him what to do because she's not aware of her own power and her own communication and her own feelings.
Right. It's codependent versus interdependent, because you don't have two individuals. You have either a parent and a child or two children, depending. Usually there's a parent in the mix, but we'll get into that in a different podcast. But, if you get nothing else from this podcast, just really understanding and to do more research that men and women are different. There's only two sexes. You can love whoever you want to love. That I don't have a problem with, but hormones and everything else make a big difference. They make a difference in everything in life, from health to communication to everything. There's really nothing it doesn't affect. Even affects like body temperature and things like that. So, like I need 4 covers at night. Like a man usually needs like a small sheet, and I'm like, I don't understand this. But that's okay. I can have my side of the bed and your side of the bed, and we can visit each other's side of the bed. But like, I'm going to have my 4 blankets. I'm not going to people please with just a small sheet. I still don't understand that about men, but I accept it.
But you communicate that you're going to have your 4 blankets, and it's a full negotiation of like, hey, I have something sensitive to talk about. I need 4 blankets. And your sheet over there is not enough for me.
I don't even think it's saying I have something sensitive to talk about. I think it's just like, I will freeze my ass off and I will put my cold feet on your back all night, and neither one of us will sleep. And so this is
that's called being a brat.
This is what I need to be able to sleep and not be a very grumpy human being all day tomorrow. So
that's fair. Do you want me to be a grumpy human being or not?
Yeah.
That easy. Fix my problem.
Or you just ask a man, like, I'm so cold at night. And he'll be like, well, just put on more blankets. You're like, great. Then you don't even have to ask. Then they'll fix your problem. Even though you know the solution to the problem, you just ask them, like, I'm so cold. Like, it's like, yeah, use more blankets. Just remember, do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? And letting men fix your problems just helps the relationship function. So even if you can fix your own problems, every once in a while, let your man fix your problems. It just makes
everybody happy.
It makes him feel good. It makes you feel good. Like, it's just symbiosis. So,
well, and a lot of times, there's a difference between like healthy communication from the feminine of being like, hey, I need this problem fixed, versus you need to do this.
Don't ever tell a man you need to do this.
That is now crossing the border of mothering. And we see it very often that because of how women's brains work, we dominate. We can dominate a conversation. We can dominate a relationship. Just take a step back. Understand where you're coming from. Observe your thoughts. Observe your feelings. And then communicate.
Also, just remember that men move slower. So, like, if he gets home from work and you're like, bam, 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 like, nag, 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 and you're wondering why you're not getting anywhere.
White noise.
That's why. Like, he needs to get home and, like, kind of decompress and pull out his home drawer, you drawer, like...
clothes work drawer.
Yeah, he needs time. And we bounce between things just way faster. So we really need to understand that, back in the day, men would go hunting all night and then they'd come home and take a nap, and then, like,
we would cook,
re-enter society. They're just slower and more methodical than we are. And that needs to be understood in all things. And stop trying to make a man's brain work like yours. It is not going to happen. You are going to get so much farther if you understand this. I cannot tell you how many times we work with clients. It's like, oh my gosh, you were so right. I'm like, yeah, if you just slow down, it will make all the difference in the world. And if you don't come at him like bam, 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 especially with nagging, men think nagging is literally, like Nicole said, you might as well just be turning up white noise. You're never going to get
it's like a TV like
out of him. It's just not going to happen. Frame it as a problem. Frame it as something he needs to fix, but do not nag him. Mothers nag. Wives and girlfriends give men problems to solve. So if you want him to do something, frame it as a problem that he needs to find the solution for. It just is how men's brains work. You are giving them not only purpose, but you're also allowing the relationship to flourish because you're not being their mother. I don't even like being nagged. Like when anybody in my life does that, I'm just like,
no one likes to be told what to do.
Me. So, but when somebody says, "Hey, do you mind helping me with this?" or "Hey, like, do you have a minute?"
Hey, this is a problem.
Just so much kinder. Yes. And we weren't taught that. Again, there's just so much in the media and things that breed hatred and breed like conflict in the male-female relationships and just in society in general. If we were kinder and more understanding towards each other, we would not get into a lot of the situations that you have seen recently. And
you have to remember that women lead the communication in a relationship. Like, we're the ones that can think and feel. We're the ones that present the problem. We're the ones that bring up the conversation if something is uncomfortable or something doesn't feel good.
We're usually the ones with a problem.
We're usually the ones with the problem. They're like, what? Like, most men are like, oh, that's a problem. Okay, now I can fix it. Like, they aren't. So often, like, women just expect men to read their minds. And that gets you into some deep, dark, weird, scary waters in a relationship. Like, you have to communicate where you're coming from, but also like give yourself a moment to like breathe before you communicate, because I think a lot of times, like Megan said, and this is where, we have clients that literally have come to us after microdosing and they're like, oh my God, my communication, like I don't talk about anything, or I was communicating like a man and I was like going at him and I was being his mom. And then it's like all of a sudden they're able to slow down and look and be like, oh, that's why it wasn't working. So it's very important to be able to also look at and listen to yourself of how you are communicating and then make adjustments from there.
Yeah. And, just again, coming back and being like, talk to people the way you would want to be spoken to. And also and I don't mean to oversimplify men, but they just are simpler. Like, if they have food and sex, they're happy. Women need a plethora of things. Like, if we lived in a man's world, everyone would just be eating and having sex. Like, that would be it. There would be no like actual society or community. So just realize how much more complex we are. Very little of what women do is for men. Everything that men do is for women. Yes. So we really have to understand like how much more simplistic they are. They really are. If they have food, which is essentially money, and sex, they're happy. So if you give them a problem to solve, you're just feeding their purpose
and their instinct. That's what they're made. That's what they were created for.
You're also going to want to have sex with them if they're fixing your problems. But if you're fixing your own problems and they're just like, I'm hungry, let's have sex, and you're just letting that be your relationship, that's on you. You need to guide him. You need to give him, space to be a part of your life. And so again, like, even though they're more cavemen than we would like to admit, that's just the reality. But we create gentlemen by guiding them and asking them to assist us, or to just like, if you like men opening doors for you, tell them like, hey, it makes me feel good when you open a door for me. Like, I want to have sex with you more when you open a door for me. If you tell a man that, I promise you, you will never open a door in your life. Give him something to work towards to get a reward. Women, we do that too. But again, we're just far more complex. Yes. But we have just made things just really interesting.
Well, and like, if he hangs the shelf for you and the shelf is crooked, just tell him, thank you so much, babe, for hanging that shelf for me, and then fix the crookedness later. Like, don't tell him it's crooked. Don't criticize him. Just gratitude. Move on. Like, you can adjust it 2 centimeters, whatever, to the right or left when he walks out of the room. Like, Thank you so much for the shelf or whatever. Yeah, I mean, if you're nitpicking something, just don't do it. It'll save you a lot of pain and suffering in the long run, because guess what? You nitpick that shelf, he'll never hang you another one.
And I don't really want to hang my own shelves.
No, it's a pain. It's so annoying. I hate it.
So anyway, we went off on a tangent that wasn't fully female communication, but it's all good information. Thanks for being here. We appreciate every single one of you that's trying to grow in consciousness, and we just appreciate that you would watch this. So we do, because there's a lot of people that would be like, I don't, they're not even open to it. So I appreciate that. And if you like us, please subscribe, like, share, find us on Instagram, visit our website. We have a entire class on the male brain, which is really important. Female brain is pretty self-explanatory. Male brains need to be understood more. So go visit that if you're interested and want to know more about this topic.
And just be patient. Be patient with him.
And hopefully you'll visit us next time. And if not, then, you'll come back, I'm sure. Anyway.
Like, share, comment, follow. And we'd love to hear from you. For now.
See you next time.
Bye.